We are a holistic, diverse ministry for the entire family, grounded in love in order to save the lost, disciple believers, build strong families, and be change agents for Christ in the community. We call ourselves life changers because when you connect with us, our core values of the welcome, the worship, the word, and the witness will change your life forever. Need a change? The new life experience is simply life changing. This past Sunday, the sermon was encouraging us in relationships. This is what I want to do in terms of the Lord's restoring relationships. Let me give you a little quick test about relationships in terms of pluses and minuses of relationships. Got to get my specs so I can read here. It's from John Maxwell, Leadership and Relationships. They can make or break you. Let's take a test. Do you feel anxious when a particular person calls or leaves you a message? Yes or no? Write it down. Have you recently been in a relationship that drains you of energy or enthusiasm? Yes or no? Write it down. 8 more to go. Is it difficult to name 3 friends with whom you can share your worst sin with? Yes or no? Write it down. Do you sometimes dread having to see a particular person in a social situation or after church, before church? Maybe you don't want to bump into them in the mall, at the grocery store, Starbucks, whatever the case may be. Yes or no? Write it down. Do you have several relationships in which you give more than you receive? Yes or no? Write it down. Is it hard for you to put in the effort to maintain close friendships? Yes or no? Write it down. Is your creativity blocked from a preoccupation with an unhealthy relationship? Yes or no? Write it down. Do you become more self-critical and uncomfortable in the presence of some people? Yes or no? Are you irritable because of unresolved frustrations with people? Yes or no? Do you have imaginary conversations with people causing internal conflict? Yes or no? Write it down. This is out of John Maxwell's Leadership and Relationships. They make or break you. We've been dealing with relationships and it's very important that you grab a hold of the next 2 weeks because it is critical. Relationships will make you or break you. This past Sunday sermon was encouraging us in our relationships. What nuggets did you get? Did you write them down? Did you make notes of that? Discuss them with your life group. Discuss the test that I just went over with you in your life group. Let's look at Ephesians 4:1-3 very quickly. I, therefore, a prisoner for the Lord, urge you to walk in the manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. This is Paul talking. And here Paul is saying relationships are absolutely critical. The whole book of Ephesians, he is talking about relationships. He's talking about Timothy's relationships to those whom he is trying to pastor. He's talking about the believers' relationships with God, that they sit at the right hand of the Father in the presence or in the place of Christ. He is talking about relationships, and relationships are absolutely critical. From where we first learn relationships management is this: your family. Family life is where you first learn, and then from there, opposite sex couples and on the job, and all of those things had to do with you learning relationships. And you know what? God entrusted in humanity the ability for us to help form right relationships. All you got to do is look at somebody in an errant way and their relationships and how they manage or do not manage them. The core of it probably started in their family life, but it didn't stay there. So what we're going to do in these life groups that are coming up, we're going to deal with how we manage relationships, because relationships matter. I know the millennials, everybody talk about millennials. Oh, they were so relational. Yes, yes. But they didn't start it. It's always been. It's always been. From our relationship with God, which we call theology, to our relationship with each other. Those relationships were both positive and negative, deposits and withdrawals, hurtful and helpful and harmful and happy. All of them, the dichotomy, the balance. And Jesus, in the midst of all of that, developed great relationships with 12 men that he called to himself to help us see how to manage relationships. Now, what we fail to understand is all those relationships that Jesus was in with the 12 disciples actually helped Jesus be Jesus as much as it helped the disciples be the disciples. In other words, had not Jesus gotten Peter to say, no, that's not going to happen to you, Master, he would not have had the opportunity to set the record straight. Had not Jesus had to deal with the sons of thunder to let them know that there are some that are not part of him that are still part of what God is doing. Had not he had Judas, we would never know anything about the 30 pieces of silver, and we will never know anything about him rising to the occasion. What am I saying? The negative relationships are equally as important as the positive, because they all draw us into being who we need to be. So here it is. Are you ready to go into your life groups? Keep this in mind. Jot this down. Relationships are repositories of reciprocity, both good and bad. And this year, God is going to restore relationships to profitability, to win-win. It's all about relationships, and he's restoring them in 2021.